What's up, everyone? Sorry we're a few minutes late. It's my fault. No, it's Leo's fault. No, it's both of our fault. Really, it's not. We just wanted to be fashionably late because we're cool. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Leo, Luna, and then that's Maverick Pallack. We got a lot to talk about this wonderful Friday. Usually not a lot of things happen during bye weeks, but not this year. This year, there's constant news. The Niners picked up Takkarist McKinley and then failed his physical and waived him, and he never technically was on the Niners. We're going to talk about that. But first, the Niners have placed 3 more players on the COVID-19 list. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Daniel Helm. They join Hroniss Grasu, Joe Walker, Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead. 7 players on the COVID-19 list. That's all I really got to say about that. If the Niners had a game on Sunday, they'd probably have to cancel it. And if these guys can't pass tests in the next week or so, who knows what's going to happen with the game next week against the Rams. I guess you could call it good luck and lucky timing that it's happening now. But, I mean, really the way it's going, there could be another report tomorrow from the Niners of 2 or 3 more players who get this. So not what they need. What do you guys have any thoughts about this?
So I have a question for you. Not necessarily.
Sure.
With this bye week, are players still going to the facility every single day to test?
Good question. I don't think they're in the facility, but I think they have to do drive-by testing. I've done drive-by testing at Levi's, by the way. So I think they have to.
Okay. That was
Yes.
my question. So
Yeah.
Where if they don't show up, basically, are they considered on the list?
No, I don't think so. I think what they have to do is drive up. Like that's what I did. There was one person in the press box who it was Cam. And he had COVID. He tested, or his wife tested positive. We all had to go in and drive up, get the little nose swab, and leave. So I'm sure they can do that too. Okay. They have to, and I'm sure they do it 7 days a week. So okay. we could hear more news on tomorrow.
Okay, I asked because it's the bye week. What if somebody wants to go see a family member for a day, see his wife and his kids for one day, and they're not able to drive by? Like, is that considered, or is the team telling them, "Hey, you can't do this"?
I don't know.
I haven't asked.
That's a good question. Maybe you should ask Jamar Taylor and get the scoop on that one.
I should.
Just kidding. Well,
my only stance is just 3 guys from the Oregon Rose Bowl team. That's Joe Walker, Grasu, and Eric Armstead. I know a lot of the guys get put on the list are close contact, not necessarily positive tests. That was the issue, of course, with Ayuk. True. So it could just be or Ayuk a couple of weeks ago, I should say. So that could be the same thing here.
I have one quick thought, and then we'll move on. It seems to me that this is becoming a bigger and bigger issue every week, COVID in the NFL. And that mirrors what's happening in the world. I mean, cases are spiking throughout the country. So it seems to me it's not a Niner issue, it's an NFL issue. And where we're at right now, November 20th, I don't know what I'm pointing at, November 20th, we're past most teams' bye weeks. There's less wiggle room in the schedule. So if teams start having 7, 8 players go down with COVID a week, they're going to have to start canceling games, and maybe they might have to schedule an 18th week of the season to play more games. And then if that isn't enough, what they talked about is adding an 8th team to the playoffs if they have to start canceling games, and certain teams can't get to a 16-game schedule. So Niners, maybe this is good news for the Niners. Maybe this opens up their window to get into the playoff. This is getting really interesting, and this is a story that's not going away. It's actually might start coming with more frequency.
They get into the playoffs at 6-6. Imagine that.
Be one of those years. All right, so that's something to look for. Now let's talk about Tak McKinley, Takkarist. You know, my parents were going to name me Takkarist. In the last minute, they switched to Grant, which is something else. I like the name Takkarist. He could have been. I don't know why I'm so fixated on first names, but that's I've never met a Takkarist in my life, but I like it. Anyway, he could have been a Niner. He should have been a Niner. He may be a Niner one day. He's not a 49er. They failed his physical. He must really have a groin injury. Leo called me about a half hour ago and said, does that mean the Niners have to pay him? And the answer is no. He was never on the team. They don't have to pay him a dime. He's out. I don't know who has to pay him, but not the Niners. My question to you guys is, do you think this was just a failed experiment, or do you think there actually is a future for Takkarist McKinley on this team? Do you think they'll sign him this offseason? Maverick, why don't you start? Oh, Leo, start. You open your mouth first.
No, because from what I understand, someone could fact check me in the comments if they want. From what I understand is if you get the guy on waivers and you have to put him on waivers once again, and if nobody claims him, you are stuck with that salary, with that dead cap, essentially. So if the 49ers were not willing to just pass his physical and put him on IR and hope to re-sign him in the offseason, that tells me that, hey, his 49er tenure was probably less than 24 hours.
I don't think they're stuck with his dead cap if they fail his physical.
Okay, so they have to pass the physical to be stuck with the dead cap.
I think so.
Got it.
I think that's still the Falcons' dead cap.
Okay, got it. So that would make sense. So basically, at that point, why not just pass the physical, put him on IR, and that's your shot to basically re-sign him? Them deciding not to do that, or Shanahan says, hey, this team still has a chance for the playoffs. Maybe he was be available week 16, week 17. That kind of tells me, all right, failed experiment. We don't like what we see. We're just going to move on.
My reasoning for I think them not doing that is because we don't know who the defensive coordinator of the 49ers is going to be next year. If Robert Saleh is going to be a head coach, which I think he's definitely deserving of that. A lot of people want Raheem Morris. A lot of people want Dan Quinn. And I think Tak McKinley, I guess his relationship with them is a work in progress at best. I don't
think he has a relationship with them. They cut him.
Yeah. Well, it's not great with the former Falcon or with him and the Falcons. So I would imagine if they came over here, there'd be a different relationship. So if bringing him over here and then hoping to re-sign him next year, I don't know if they want to do that. But if for some reason Saleh doesn't get hired again and he stays in Santa Clara, then it could be a time to bring in McKinley and add depth because he does fit the system.
I get the sense that the 49ers want Tak McKinley. That when I say the 49ers, the coaches, I get the feeling that Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh want Tak McKinley, especially Saleh, especially Chris Kosarik. I mean, that's the kind of guy they revive. I mean, first round pick, has had production, given to Chris Kosarik and Robert Saleh. To me, the way I look at it is not healthy right now, may not be available to play at all this season, or maybe not until week 16 or week 17. If you do pass his physical, as Leo brings up, you got to pay him. And that's a significant chunk of change. It's not Kyle's money. It's not Robert's money. Whose money is it? It's the Yorks' money. And the way I feel about the Yorks is they basically spend only as much money as they have to. So if they went up to Jed and was like, hey, we got Tak, groin's a little messed up, probably can't play for 3-4 weeks, but maybe can play the last couple of weeks. Can we keep him? And you're going to have to pay X amount of money. And he's like, no. Why? What am I going to write this check for? So to me, what happened, I'm guessing, and I don't know, is they brought him in the building. They said, Tak, we love you. We really like you. Do you want to play with us? You grew up in Richmond. Do you want to come back home? Do you like the idea of living in Northern California? All right, let's revisit this. Let's couch this. We got cheapo owners, not our fault. Let's couch this, come back in the offseason and see what we can do then. Doesn't mean he might get better offers in the offseason. But I think the Niners coaches like him. And I base this on 100% of nothing. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds reasonable.
Sounds like fiction. I don't know. I think they like him. I think they like him, and I think he was too expensive to get Jed to sign off for the next 6 games.
How could they not like him when Tak went to the same school as you did?
That's what I said. Plus, he was born in Oakland. So, I mean, it's like a rags to riches story. It's like the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like, anyway, we're cut from the same cloth is what I'm trying to say. We're basically, hold on, before we move on to the next question, we got, what is the big sell point for Dan Quinn? Why does everyone want him? Fair question. Why would Dan Quinn be the replacement for Robert Saleh if Robert Saleh leaves?
I think the only reason was the system would remain pretty much the same. And I know a lot of people are down on Dan Quinn because the Atlanta defense has been pretty much horrible ever since the last couple of years, at least. But he was one of the creators of that Seattle defense that was so good for so long. So if they want a win now type situation, if Saleh does leave, it would be Quinn because he wouldn't change anything on the defense. If they're kind of rebuilding the defense and finding a new model, if Saleh does leave, they probably would go with a younger, more innovative guy, I would say.
Yeah, just to touch on that, it's Dan Quinn had success in that defense in Seattle. He had it at some point with the Falcons, And Shanahan has been on record that he believes in that style of defense, that when the Seahawks had the Legion of Boom, they had the pass rushers to get to the quarterback. That was the team he hated to play. It just made it really tough for him. So if that made it tough on Shanahan, that's the defense that he's going to want to have on his own team that as the head coach. And then secondly is I believe Shanahan believes in Dan Quinn. Shanahan was Dan Quinn's offensive coordinator at one point, and they did get to the Super Bowl together. So I would imagine they have a good working relationship.
Remember how the Niners got to Robert Saleh? He was their third choice.
Right.
They went to Robert Saleh because they couldn't get Gus Bradley. Robert Saleh is Gus Bradley's protege. And they went to Gus Bradley because they couldn't get Vic Fangio. They originally were trying to get Vic Fangio to leave the Bears, and the Bears wouldn't let him go. So while Kyle Shanahan likes the Seattle system, he isn't married to it. I like the Seattle system too, but I'm not married to it. And if you could get Vic Fangio, you get it. And I think it's interesting that the Rams have Vic Fangio's protege this year, and they're doing terrific. So I'm not necessarily sure that Shanahan would go for a retread like Dan Quinn, who admittedly hasn't had success away from Seattle in terms of defense. That Atlanta defense has stunk consistently for years, even though they've put a lot of first-round picks on that. I mean, Tak McKinley, Vic Beasley, Deion Jones, a lot of guys. Is Deion Jones a first-round pick? He is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys. Desmond Trufant. Anyway. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know that it would necessarily be Dan Quinn. I think Kyle Shanahan kind of likes identifying the young talents at coordinator. I mean, if he could identify Robert Saleh when no one had ever heard of him, I think he'd probably think he could do something similar. And I wouldn't be surprised if the replacement were someone already on the staff or someone we've never heard of.
I saw someone in the comments say D'Amico Ryans, and that's definitely a great choice if they feel he's ready. But also, if Saleh leaves, D'Amico Ryans could be Saleh's defensive coordinator. Like we don't. Yeah. There's so much uncertainty if you lose a coordinator who Correct. He brings with him.
Correct. And I kind of look at D'Amico Ryans as being D'Amico Ryans is to Saleh what Saleh was to Gus Bradley. So you might be right. I think you probably would take D'Amico with. Remember, Saleh was a linebacker coach in Jacksonville. What's up, Leo?
D'Amico might want to stay. Like you have Fred,
Perhaps.
Morgan, you have Drake Greenlaw,
True.
You have Nick Bosa. That defense is set up for success next year as long as they have a competent defensive coordinator.
Yeah, they got to offer him that DC job, or else he'll probably take it with Saleh. All right, let's move on. This is a question we talked about yesterday on the show, and Maverick was on it, but this was before the Niners had cut Takkarist McKinley. The question is, should the Niners sign Vic Beasley? Now, when I asked this question, I didn't know the first thing about what's going on with Vic Beasley. And plus, it seemed like kind of a vanity luxury signing because they had McKinley. Now they don't. Mm-hmm. Beasley has been kind of a disaster for the Titans, or they got rid of him. He came in late to camp. He failed his physical initially in camp. He's had a knee issue. He was terrible for the Titans this year. They cut him. Before this year, he had been an all-pro in 2016. He had 8 sacks the year before, former first-round pick, the kind of guy who might do well with Chris Kosarick. I don't know what kind of money he's asking for, but it doesn't seem he is meeting with the Raiders this week, and the Raiders are a contending team. So maybe he wouldn't even be interested in the 49ers. Should the Niners be interested in him?
No, not necessarily where this season's going. I think you're better off with trying to see what you could get out of Willis. Like you gave up a future 6th-round pick for the guy. See what you got with him and just try to continue to build a team. And how I also look at it is if you bring in a Vic Beasley, you're going to kick in Eric Armstead more, which that is great. That would be ideal because that's the reason why he got his money is rushing the passer from a 3-tech, not being out on the edge. But if you do that, for a guy like Vic Beasley, who's known to just go AWOL and not even let you know where he's at, that means you're taking away snaps from either Kevin Givens, you're taking away snaps from DJ Jones, Contavious Street. One of those guys are going to see less snaps on the field. And I think those 3 guys, you need to look out for more on the future. As far as DJ Jones, are you going to re-sign him? Continue to let Kevin Givens progress, and same thing with Contavious Street. And with Vic Beasley, he's only had double-digit quarterback hits twice in his entire NFL career and 1 season of double-digit sacks. If you're looking for a short-term answer, like the Raiders, yes. But as far as a tryout to see what you can get for him maybe next season, I don't think it's worth the tryout at this point.
Leo, turn up your mic a little bit if you can, just because I want people to hear you in crystal clarity. Maverick.
Got it.
I said this a little yesterday, but the effort problems with Vic Beasley, I think, are a little bit in question. Obviously, you're touching on how he showed up late to camp, and there's questions in that sense. But also, I think it's 3 tackles in 5 games this season are his stats, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like, why not just, like I wrote this week, why not just give Jordan Willis more snaps and then see if he can be your Ronald Blair next year? If Jordan Willis performs, I'm not saying Jordan Willis should be a starter next year, but why not see if he can be a part of your team? Give opportunities to young guys. The 49ers are in that middle ground of should they just look for the draft? Should they try and compete? I think they should compete, but compete with intelligence, compete with the guys that have a future on your team for a couple of years as backups. Vic Beasley wouldn't be a starter on next year's team, in my opinion, because they would go Bosa, and I think they have to get a much more established defensive end or a draft pick to be the other starter.
Okay, you guys are really down on Vic Beasley, and you guys make great points. Allow me to retort, as Samuel Jackson would say. If you can do better than Vic Beasley, great. Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think – D Ford has to go. And Tak McKinley, if they can bring him in next year, great. But Vic Beasley's better than Tak McKinley. He is. He's had more production. He is better than Tak McKinley. And the other thing about Vic Beasley, he is the kind of rusher the 49ers need to add because all of their rushers are powerful and strong and a little methodical. And the reason that D Ford was necessary is he would be the first guy in, and even if he didn't get the quarterback, he would make him hold the ball, hitch, reset, and then all of a sudden everyone else could get there. And that's why they brought in Deion Jordan, theoretically, for that skill set. He can't do that. But I think Vic Beasley can do that. I think he can. I don't know if he can do it as well as D Ford, but D Ford isn't healthy anymore, so he's fictional. If they could bring in, for the right price, if they could bring him back next year and just have him replace D Ford's role in the defense, I think it'd be a good option because you'd prefer to get that guy in the first round of the draft, but the Niners have to get a quarterback, they have to get interior offensive linemen, they have to get a corner. I don't know that they can draft an edge rusher. So to get a guy who was the former 8th pick in the draft, who had 8 sacks just last year and physically fits the profile of the D Ford replacement you're looking for, it's not a bad option. It's not a bad option. And I don't think it has anything to do with Jordan Willis. I like Jordan Willis. I like Ronald Blair. I like Kerry Hyder. But are any of those guys signed for next season?
Kerry Hyder, no. Ronald Blair, no. You already know the answer to this.
Hyder, no. You don't have to necessarily bring in Vic Beasley now, but maybe call him up, take him out for ice cream. Kind of start the relationships, test it out, and then see where he's at in the offseason.
So
ice cream.
I think if you're looking for Vic Beasley to replace D Ford, that can't be your plan A going into the offseason. That's got to be more of a plan C, plan B option. Not even plan B would probably be Kerry Hyder. But if you could go get Melvin Ingram, who would be an unrestricted free agent, go get Melvin Ingram. And then with Kerry Hyder as plan B, and then guys like Beasley, Tak McKinley, plan C and plan D. But like I said, if the 49ers were sitting with a reverse record at 6-4, absolutely make this move. But where they're sitting at 4-6, see if you can get a full season workload out of Kerry Hyder, and just continue going with that route.
I don't know. Okay, let's move on. But watching Carlos Dunlap last night, looking what he could do, how he kind of transformed that defense. Niners have a top 5 defense right now without really any edge presence. Be interesting to see what, a mediocre edge rusher like Vic Beasley could do for this defense. I look at this team as not being dead yet, but I think I'm probably alone in that estimation. So I don't even know if Vic Beasley is interested. It seems to me Vic Beasley should go to the Raiders because not only are they better, that's tax-free state. You get more money in Nevada. So I would sign there too.
I thought the 49ers should have got Carlos Dunlap as well. So
yeah, he's decent. Pretty. Okay. All right.
You can tackle Kyler Murray. That's such a novel concept.
Yeah, none of the Niners can do that. All right, speaking of the NFC West, are the Niners really the worst team in the NFC West? We know they have the worst record in the NFC West. Are they the worst team in the NFC West?
I think.
And second question, answer it as you after. Who is the best team in the NFC West in your estimation?
So for me, it's hard to, if we're talking about just if all the NFC West teams only played each other, I think it's a big matchup thing because I think the 49ers can beat the Rams for the most part. I mean, we'll see. I'll probably be proven wrong next week, but I think the 49ers match up really well against the Rams and can beat them, especially with a healthy roster almost every time. But I think the Seahawks and the Cardinals match up really well, especially with their running quarterbacks against this current Niner defense, and they would win that. But then I also think the Rams match up pretty well against both those teams. The Rams beat the Seahawks last week. So it's tough, but I think Arizona is the best team in the division, even though last night wasn't great. But I think Kyler Murray, with that shoulder problem, missed a couple open guys. If he had a little better of a day, if they ran the ball a little better, I think they would have won. And I think Arizona's the best team in the NFC West.
Are the Niners the worst?
I'd say it's a toss-up between them and the Rams. I'd like to see Mostert and Debo back before I make that assessment, but I'd say right now I'm leaning toward the Niners being the bottom just because of injuries.
Okay.
So is this being included with injuries, like the current roster with George Kittle off and Nick Bosa?
Yeah,
off?
like right now.
Currently
Yeah.
Okay, if we were playing Madden and I turned off injuries, I'd probably say the 49ers are the best team in the NFC West. But this is real life. This isn't Madden. I cannot turn off injuries. But yeah, being injured, that they are the worst team in the NFC West. I think if any of these teams had their quarterback injured as well, like if you take Russell Wilson off the Seahawks, if you take Goff off the Rams and Murray off the Cardinals, they would be the worst team in the NFC West as well. Just looking at it from glass half full type perspective. And then the best team in the NFC West as it currently sits, I would probably I would go with a team that I trust more. And I would say I would trust Russell Wilson and that team, even though I cannot stand them. I would trust them a lot more than a Jared Goff, hoping that the scheme wins the game and then hoping that Kyler Murray and his defense can step up and win the game. I would trust Wilson more just based he has a huge resume. He's Super Bowl winning quarterback.
To me, this question is such a conundrum because, the Niners are the worst team in the NFC West. They have no one healthy. But then they match up really well with the Rams. And they might beat the Rams even shorthanded next week, which is interesting because you can make the argument that the Rams are the best team in this division. Like, they match up so well with the Seahawks and the Cardinals because the Rams have Jalen Ramsey. And Jalen Ramsey is like a young Richard Sherman with speed. He can actually match up with and shut down DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf, which makes the Rams, makes them competitive against those teams, makes them better than those teams. At least they can beat those teams. I don't know if they're better against other teams, but the Rams are interesting. They might win this division, and the Niners might beat them this Sunday. So I don't know what to make of this division, really. The Niners, I think, can compete with all three of these teams. And next year, they might win this division next year if they just have some better luck.
Okay, Grant, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
This will decide it for you.
Mm-hmm.
If we get money involved. If I told you a team out of the NFC West, I'm predicting the future. Team out of the NFC West with the current standings and the current rosters as it sits are going to win the NFC and advancing to the Super Bowl. Which team would you put your $100 on at this moment?
I would have to look at the schedules. I don't even know who the Rams are playing the rest of the way. So I don't know. I have heard that the Seahawks have an easy schedule the rest of the way. They got all those NFC East teams. So maybe the Seahawks.
Let's say that the schedules are even. Take that part out of it. Even schedule.
I kind of like the Rams. They got the number two. They got the number 2 defense in the league. I think they're just a little bit more well-rounded than Seattle. Seattle to me is 4 players, and they're great. But that team has just so many weaknesses. I don't know what they're going to be from week to week. They were great against the Cardinals last night. That was terrific. That was really, really good. But the Cardinals to me are like a year away too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Everyone talks about injuries. Cardinals also losing Chandler Jones. I think that
big deal.
hurt them
That is true.
It's a big deal.
a lot, and I think that's their biggest knock is pass rush. They had to go get Marcus Golden, which I know Niner Nick is still mad the Niners didn't get Marcus Golden, but Chandler Jones is a big loss for them. I still think they're the best chance because I could see Kyler Murray, if that shoulder injury doesn't bother him, going on a run to end the season.
All I know is the Rams have to play the Cardinals twice. They still haven't played the Cardinals yet, and I think the Rams are going to win both of those games. I think the Rams match up extremely well with the Cardinals because, again, if you have an answer for DeAndre Hopkins, you can beat Arizona. If you don't, you're the 49ers. I don't want to talk about corner yet, though. We're going to talk about that later. Let's come back to quarterback and give the people what they want. If the 49ers get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo next year and replace him with a rookie quarterback, can the Niners win a Super Bowl in next season with a rookie quarterback?
Yeah. I absolutely think they can because I think they could be as dominant. Once again, I'm going to say this with Madden injuries turned off. I think they could be as dominant in 21 as they were in 19. And I'm talking about 2021 and 2019. And if you look at what they did again in the playoffs against a Minnesota team that beat the Saints, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have a good game at all. I was there. He was like trying to give Kendricks interceptions all game long until Shanahan said, okay, we're done here and we're just going to run the ball. And then in the Green Bay Packers game, Jimmy Garoppolo only threw the ball 8 times, as we all know by now. Kind of just, it's not like we ever heard that before. Grant, have you heard that? Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFC Championship game only.
Is that right? Is that right? Did that really happen? Is that no? That's crazy.
So when I look at their playoff success, what they did, could that succeed with the rookie quarterback? With the rate that these rookie quarterbacks are playing at such a high level, I am absolutely convinced that the 49ers can get a rookie quarterback in this draft, say like a Zach Wilson. Trey Lance, I wouldn't say, because I think he needs to sit the bench. But I believe if they get a Zach Wilson and he starts week 1 for the 49ers, they get in the playoffs, I'm absolutely confident that this team, looking at where they are on offense, that's less sacks than what they're currently dealing with right now with Zach Wilson. Look at Kyler Murray. He's able to just run out and then throw the ball away real quick if nothing's there. And that's what Zach Wilson will bring to the table. Defense, once again, Madden injuries turned off. You're getting Nick Bosa back. I'm assuming they're going to re-sign Jason Verrett. We'll see. But I think this team can do it. Not a lot of teams can, but I think this one can.
I think the only way a rookie quarterback on any team in the NFL can take his team to the Super Bowl is a situation similar to what he wasn't a rookie, but what Patrick Mahomes did when they went to, I believe, the AFC Championship game, and Kaepernick with the Niners that year. You have to have a really good team with no holes. But I also think a big thing with rookie quarterbacks is they need to not 16 games, but I think if they play all 16 games, it's really hard for the rookie to take his team to the Super Bowl. It's never happened in the NFL. People will comment people they think did it, and it hasn't. I've looked it up plenty of times. Dan Marino didn't do it. Ben Roethlisberger wasn't a rookie. It's hard to do that. Obviously, rookies are now more prepared than ever. But the only situation I could see a rookie having that much success in the playoffs is a delayed Kaepernick situation, veteran Nick Foles situation where if he was a rookie at that time, where a team plays most of the season, does well, and then a rookie comes in and teams don't really know how to defend him yet, and then he goes on a 6-7 game run. But I just don't see a rookie quarterback being able to overcome defenses, figuring out how to defend them on the fly, and then being able to perform in the postseason. The second year, I can definitely see that happening, but the first year, it's hard.
It is hard. You're right, Maverick. It's never happened before. It has never freaking happened before. So for the Niners to go this route, you're trying to do something that's never been done. That being said, doesn't mean it can't be done. The Miami Dolphins might do it this year. The Miami Dolphins are a legit contender, and they have Tua Tagovailoa as their starting quarterback. Didn't start the season. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe you want us to have the rookies sit on the bench the first 8 games or so, but they might pull it off this year. And they think the argument that why the Niners might be able to pull it off too is if they do have a rookie quarterback next year and he's making $5 million on the cap, and they can save that money, save $20 million from Jimmy Garoppolo, keep Trent Williams, keep Fred Warner, maybe make an addition bring someone in you wouldn't expect, then now you are talking about that team, again, with Madden injuries off, you're talking about that team with no weaknesses. You're talking about a team with a top 5 defense or better. You're talking about a team with a top 5 run game or better. A team with weapons through the air, receivers such as Kittle, Jordan Reed, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. I mean, it's the ideal spot for a rookie to come in. So the way I look at it is these rookies are way more pro ready than ever before. This is the ideal landing space for a rookie quarterback. Hell yeah, they can win a Super Bowl. And if they don't, I don't think it'll be because of the rookie quarterback. I think it'll be because of, injuries or Kyle Shanahan blowing it in the second half of the Super Bowl or something like that, but not necessarily. And you know what? I don't think it has to be Zach Wilson. I like Zach Wilson a lot. He could end up being a top 5 pick. If it's Trey Lance, I think they could do it with Trey Lance. If it's Kyle Trask, I think they could do it with Kyle Trask. So I look at all of these first-round quarterbacks as a physical step up from what the Niners have at the position right now. So we'll see if they can get them up to speed. I think that sitting for half a season is interesting.
Yeah, what you're saying with Tua, that's what I was touching on, is like teams are going to have 8-ish games to figure out how to defend Tua, what his total weaknesses are, how to stop him. Whereas Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, obviously those teams are much worse, and the Chargers have been really injured. But teams have 14 to 16 games to figure out how to defend them, and then plus all the playoffs. So I think Tua does have an advantage outside of just the roster, is having teams have to figure out how to defend him with less time. And that would be the issue with Wilson starting from day one or Wilson starting from week 8. And then I think that would set the Niners up for much more success if he was the guy.
I see what you're saying on that, but if you go into training camp, Zach Wilson is going to by far outperform Nick Mullins. And to tell a contending team, because that's what they would be coming into next offseason, despite the injuries they had this year, they would be a contending team. So Miami wasn't there yet to be called contenders this offseason. So if you're going to tell a contender team, hey, guys, we know what you see on the practice field and what you guys are dealing with Zach Wilson, but he's not going to be our starter. We're actually going to start Nick Mullins. That just creates the mood like, all right, like, what are we doing here? And then really quick, something that's never happened before that the Niners just did is a team before never went 4-12 and then advanced to the Super Bowl. They did that last season. So the 49ers are eliminating things that have never happened before.
Yeah. Well, if they had Zach Wilson and he wins the competition to be the starter, great. But what happened in Miami is that Tua got outplayed in camp. I know teams, I know beat writers who covered that team and were there. He got outplayed.
Yeah.
So it's not a given that Zach Wilson from BYU, who doesn't really take snaps from under center, is just going to be great in camp. Tua wasn't. Doesn't mean he won't be great by week 8. Tua is pretty freaking good right now. Right. So it's an interesting thing. And I want to stick with this topic, but go on to another question. Let's say they do draft a quarterback like we expect them to in week 1. They're going to need a bridge quarterback too, just in case. And it could be Nick Mullins, or it could be Ryan Fitzpatrick. You could just do exactly what the Dolphins did. Or the Niners could re-sign Alex Smith. They signed him. They drafted him. He kind of has a dear place in our hearts. He's kind of a 49er. And before you guys dismiss it, I usually talk last. I'm going to talk first. He helped Patrick Mahomes learn the Chiefs offense. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid have constantly credited Alex Smith for Patrick Mahomes' development. So he's done this before. He also helped Colin Kaepernick. He did. I think in terms of, you're thinking of a veteran quarterback who can help groom a youngster and not have an ego and not be worried about his own playing time, it's Alex. And on top of that, to bring Alex Smith back to the Niners and have him finish his career here would be great, in my opinion. So I'm all for it. You guys are free to say why you're not into it.
Go ahead, Matt.
If he signs in the Josh McCown role where he's retired in Texas but is on the practice squad, I'm okay with that. But if he's the number 1 quarterback, if that's what you're saying, or the number 2 quarterback on this roster, Alex Smith is not the Alex Smith from even 4 years ago. That knee injury took him down. People hate on Garoppolo for only checking down. Watch what Alex Smith has done the last couple of weeks. His longest pass, I think, was 27 yards last week against the Lions.
He'll fit right in.
Yeah, he fits the Garoppolo offense, but he's only throwing to J.D. McKissick out of the backfield. He can't run like he did against New Orleans in that playoff game. There's a big health question of would he even come back for a minor salary with the risk of another injury like that again. I would rather, if Alex Smith did come back, it would have to be in that Josh McCown practice squad role. I don't see him being a top 2 quarterback unless dire circumstances happen like what's happened with Washington.
So how did you know that we were going to automatically dismiss it, Grant?
I saw your faces, and I was like, you know what? I'm talking first. I can see it. You guys were like, oh, my God, no.
I would rather go after a Fitzpatrick than an Alex Smith, just because what stands out to me is Chris Sims, Shanahan's alleged best friend, where they have matching tattoos, stated this that he likes having a quarterback with mobility, some type of mobility. And can you really put Alex Smith in some play actions, boot him out to the right? Can you trust the leg that much? I'm not sure. To where Shanahan might feel a little limited in his play calling. If he was in a Shanahan system for 3 years, 2 years, even 1 year, I would say, yeah, that would be a great mentor to teach a rookie coming in the Shanahan scheme. But he hasn't been under that Shanahan scheme like how he was under Andy Reid until Patrick Mahomes came in. So if I'm starting someone that's fresh into Shanahan's playbook, I would probably go Fitzpatrick, because he is a little mobile and he can stretch the field with his arm, even though he has his high ups and his low lows.
I think I would prefer Smith to Fitzpatrick, because although Fitzpatrick's a better quarterback probably right now, I think he's more about himself. I don't think he's necessarily trying to groom the next Niners quarterback. I think Alex Smith would like to do that. He's shown he can do that. And even though he looks shaky now, I mean, he's just coming off this injury. I mean, give him another year, another offseason, see what he looks like. And ideally, you're not playing him for more than 4, 5, 6 games anyway. I think, and the other thing too is what I think you guys don't really understand is the Niners aren't in win now mode. They have a good team when healthy, but Kyle Shanahan is signed through 2077. He's going to be this head coach until he's 92 years old. So if he wants to draft a quarterback and kind of start over, he's free to. He has that cushion. He has that mandate from ownership. So I don't know that they necessarily have to bring in the free agent quarterback who gives them the best ability to win in September and October of 2021. They may not be thinking that way.
I'm a stats person. I know people don't like to just look at stats, but just Alex Smith, 1, hasn't looked good on tape, in my opinion, besides checkdowns. And then 2, he didn't even look good against the Giants. I know he was working his way back from injury, but I think he has 3 picks and 1 touchdown this year. It's just, why is that worse why is that better than Garoppolo? I know the salary is a big issue, and that's probably the only drawing factor to Alex Smith as to Garoppolo. But I'd much rather have, if it was the same salary, I'd much rather have Garoppolo. And Alex Smith, I think, is a third stringer, second stringer. If you want him as that third stringer, that CJ Beathard role, I'll take it. If he's a cheap commodity, like, go ahead. But to start 4 or 5 games, that's the definition of tanking, in my opinion.
No, I mean, we wouldn't be bringing Alex Smith to teach him the system. Obviously not. Mullins would teach him the system. But you'd be bringing Alex Smith to teach him how to be a pro. Nick Mullins is great, but Nick Mullins is not a starter. He's never been a franchise quarterback. He's never had that pressure on him. Alex Smith has. He can teach him how to deal with that. And again, he's done this before. This is in his resume. It's in his track record. But I don't know. Interesting to think about.
So you're saying Crash Davis from Bull Durham is essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's stick with the topic of nostalgia and former 49ers that were great. Who was the best 49ers player of the 2010s, the entire decade?
So normally I would go with like greatness of your tenure, go with the guy who's been fantastic for the more amount of time. I probably would have said Joe Staley, but I'm not going to say Joe Staley. I'm going to say the guy was said to be a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, and he was great when he was on the field. I love that I'm building this up, by the way, letting you guys think. And Aldon Smith, I think he was the greatest from that 2010 team because there was no player like him in the NFL as far as coming off the edge. He had that big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers where he sacked Ben Roethlisberger so many times. He shut off the power, and they had to wait to turn it back on. He was just fantastic. Grant said he's probably better than Bosa, what he saw, and in a recent podcast with Joe Staley admitted to the same thing. So I'm going with Aldon Smith. It's just unfortunate that it was a smaller sample size.
Staley said that about Aldon Smith?
Aldon Smith was better than Nick Bosa.
You what? Maverick.
I would say Patrick Willis is number one in my opinion, but he did have his 3 best seasons, I believe, were 07 through 09. So if I'm picking one player for the entire decade, I'm leaning towards Navarro Bowman, just because I think he has the most iconic play of the decade. It is the pick at the stick. And then here's 671 tackles, 43 TFLs, 9 forced fumbles, and he was the leader of a lot of those defenses, Patrick Willis and Bowman. And also, didn't Bowman have the game-winning play to send them to the Super Bowl against the Falcons as well?
He certainly did. Pass breakup, Roddy White.
Yeah, I would go Bowman, but I understand that Staley and Patrick Willis are probably 1 and 2, but I lean toward Bowman.
Okay, fair enough. Look, the reason I'm not going to go with Willis and Bowman is the way I look at Bowman is he had 3 great years, maybe 4. Willis had 7, but 3 or 4 of them were in the other decade. Frank Gore was great. Might have been Mr. 49er of the previous decade. You could argue he was Mr. 49er of the 2000s. But when I think Mr. 49er of the 2010s, it's Joe Staley. He was great every single year of the decade, from 2011 to 2019. Maybe he doesn't have a signature moment. He doesn't have stats. He's the best left tackle in franchise history. I think somehow he's even a little underrated in 49ers franchise lore. He's Mr. 49er from the 2010s, and that's nothing against Bowman, Gore, Willis, any of these guys, because they have legitimate cases too. I think longevity. Maybe it's just the fact that Staley was he's the only guy who played the entire decade with the team. So it has to be him, in my opinion. Yeah, the other guys make a point too.
Like I said, I think that was kind of the consensus. I just wanted to go with something off script, and I looked up Aldon Smith had.
No, I like it.
Sacks in 43 games.
It's a good call. It shouldn't be Nick Bosa. Might be Jamar Taylor. Hard to say.
He came 2020, so he's going to be iconic of the 20s.
Can I give my most underrated of the decade?
Yes.
Okay, well, so a lot of people say Justin Smith, but this is like not even close to being the best of the decade. I'm just saying, guy that was underappreciated his whole career is Isaac Sopoaga. I think he owned that run defense, and I'm not even saying top 20 of the decade, but I think he was just an important player during that era, and I just wanted to give him a shout out because I was looking at his stats, and he didn't even have that many tackles, but it felt like he was always one of the better players on defense.
Good call. Another underrated player from the 2010s 49ers, Ahmad Brooks. He was on a bunch of different teams. He was always solid to solid plus. And he, if I remember correctly, he had like a stretch in the 2013 playoffs when he went freaking crazy, right? He had like 6 sacks in 3 games or something like that.
He jumped over and got Cam Newton on that one, right? That was that year?
Ahmad Brooks. Ahmad Brooks was as talented as any player on that team. And he was crazy. And I like that. Although, anyway, hold on. More. Let's stick with legacy because I want to talk legacy here. If Jimmy Garoppolo never plays another snap with the 49ers, where does he fit in? Where does he rank among the all-time great 49ers quarterbacks? And this is the franchise with the most pedigree at quarterback of all time. Where does he rank? Where does he fit in?
So I don't like to talk about people before I've like watched live because I believe outside of just stats that you kind of have to see how they do it every week. So obviously Joe and Steve are 1 and 2, but for my coherent lifetime, so starting around 2002, 2003, when I could understand what was happening on a football field, I'd say Garoppolo is the number 2 quarterback of my coherent 49er lifetime. Colin Kaepernick is number one. People are going to freak out, but Kaepernick's one.
And everyone at home, remember, Maverick is 13 years old, so you got to keep that in perspective.
Yeah. 96. So didn't really get to see much of Jeff Garcia, and so I'd say Garoppolo is right after Cap.
That's fair.
So
Leo,
you're going with your lifetime, huh?
okay.
Okay. I'm just gonna go with all time. And so one's obviously Joe Montana, two's obviously Steve Young, and then that's where your list starts. Fortunately, I was old enough or young enough, I guess I can say, to understand Jeff Garcia, and that's who I'm going to put at third because he was a hell of a player, multi seasons with 30+ touchdowns.
2? Yeah, I think 2.
Yeah,
4-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah. He was a baller, and a lot of people forget about him just because of the drama with T.O.
Yes.
and his failed attempts at being quarterback afterwards. Cleveland, Detroit. He had one 6-game set with the Eagles, where he was. I think he went like 4-2 in those 6 games.
He won a playoff game with them, I think.
I
started a playoff game with him.
Did as well. I think it was against Tampa, if I remember. And so he was really good as a 49er under Steve Mariucci. He was and he was a guy who wasn't even supposed to be like a franchise quarterback. He was just Jeff Garcia from San Jose State. And then he had a fabulous 9 or 10 year. Fourth, I'm gonna put Colin Kaepernick, and I think Colin Kaepernick could have been over Jeff Garcia at third all time for the Niners, but they wanted to make Colin Kaepernick more Russell Wilson-esque. When Colin Kaepernick wasn't Russell Wilson, he was Colin Kaepernick. It's like trying to tell Lamar Jackson to be Patrick Mahomes.
And Greg Roman's doing that right now.
Yeah, it just was not going to happen. And so, unfortunately, with Colin Kaepernick, his career didn't turn out the way it should have. Like his final year, he had probably the worst receiving core I've ever seen on an NFL team. He had wide receiver 1, Jeremy Curley, wide receiver 2, Quentin Patton, tight end was Vance McDonald. It was just bad. And he still put up 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions.
So where does Jimmy rank? I don't care about Colin. I like Colin. Good. He's 4. Where's Jimmy?
Whoa.
You're taking up like eight hours, man. I want to know about Jimmy.
That's
Leo.
Good. Everybody wants to know about Jimmy. Grant, take your turn. I'm going to mute you.
All right. Fair enough.
Jimmy's 5th. I got Jimmy over Alex Smith because same thing with Smith. It was kind of one good year like Jimmy had, and I think Jimmy's one good year was better than Alex Smith's.
All right. I find it hard to differentiate between Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, and Jimmy. To me, they all have the same resume. They're all guys who never went to a Pro Bowl, but did go to a Super Bowl. And, well, Alex didn't. Alex came close.
Not a Pro Niner either.
Yeah. So I guess you could put Jimmy ahead of Alex. And I guess because Jimmy went to a Super Bowl, Alex didn't. Colin went to a Super Bowl, Alex didn't. So I guess you could put Jimmy ahead of Alex.
Right.
But putting him ahead of Colin, I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can. I mean, Colin started more games. I think he had better numbers.
Yeah.
All the rushing yards.
In the NFC Championship game.
He played really well. He had some legendary performances in the playoffs that Jimmy doesn't have. So I guess I would agree it would be Joe, Steve, Garcia, Colin, Jimmy, and then Smith. Although, God, I feel kind of funny giving it to Jimmy over Smith because really Jimmy's legacy in San Francisco was like a blip. You know, if he doesn't play another game, what did he end up? Did he even have 32 starts? I don't think so. It was like 25.
For what, his entire
with the Niners. I think it's like 25. So
yeah,
kind of strange. Isn't life strange? All right. Sorry I snapped at you, Leo. I still love you. I was just kidding.
No, my heart's broken, but it's fine. We're good.
Okay, my question next is Kyle Shanahan secretly tanking?
I don't think so. I don't think Shanahan has that in his DNA. I just see Shanahan as a guy who doesn't really give a crap about what anyone says, what anyone thinks, and he's going to put his best foot forward. I just don't see Shanahan as a guy to where, all right, I'm going to try to have this team go 5-11 so I can end up with one of these quarterbacks that I haven't even looked at on tape yet. Because there's no way Shanahan's spending time to scout a quarterback to try to get a better pick. He's scouting the entire season, and I think he's trying to do that to win.
What do you think, Maverick?
Well, first, I see a comment saying, was Cap even a real quarterback? All he did was run. I've never seen someone do that crossfield throw he had to Frank Gore ever in my life. That play at Levi's, that's one of the best quarterback plays I've ever seen. So moving on to that, I don't think Shanahan's tanking. I think it's just sometimes it's hard to win games, and sometimes you get injuries and you lose. And then Shanahan's also, it could just be something as simple as we don't have our full roster. Let's experiment. And if we lose, not the end of the world. We get a better draft pick. But this is the time to experiment because there's not Super Bowl aspirations at this point in the season. So figure it out. The Dolphins, quote unquote, tried to tank last year and they didn't get the first overall pick. It's impossible to earn the first overall pick unless you're in the MLB. So try and win it, try and experiment. And I think that's what they're doing.
I mean, if he is tanking, Robert Saleh didn't get the memo. The defense isn't tanking. I mean, the players aren't tanking. If he is tanking, it's like it's secret. And the reason I keep thinking that he might be, I mean, going after Takkarist McKinley doesn't look like a tanking move. It looks like a desperate move to keep your season alive. But what happened last week, the way they lost to the Eagles. I mean, the Niners are now losing games because they don't have enough healthy running backs to play. I mean, they're a run-first team, and they don't have enough healthy running backs to run the ball as much as they want to, which to me is a strange way to lose. I mean, running back is the easiest position to find. There are Pro Bowlers who are like 26 who are free agents right now. Now, Jordan Howard just got signed. But it's like, they're guys. If you need a body that you can put back there that you trust a little bit more than Austin Walter and JaMychal Hasty, they exist. It just seems so strange to lose that way. I mean, if you're losing because you don't have your wide receivers, I get that. Or your edge rushers or your corners. Like, that's a tough position to find midseason. Running back? There are great running backs who are just like hanging out making macaroni and cheese right now. So it just seems like such a weird way to lose and to not even address it. And it's like, well, this week we're going to give it a shot with Jerick McKinnon and Austin Walter. Like, you can't win games with Jerick McKinnon starting at running back. So it's like, I don't know, like that's how you tank in basketball, right? You just kind of construct your roster in such a way that you just physically can't win. And if they actually have Jerick McKinnon start any more games the rest of the year, I got to wonder, man. That's the one position that you should be able to get someone who doesn't totally stink. Like CJ Anderson's available. That guy was a decent player like 18 months ago. Like there are guys. You don't have to be at the undrafted free agent level if you don't want to be.
Hey, Grant.
If you don't trust them. What?
Alfred Morris is averaging 5.2 yards a carry this year off the Giants practice squad. I just want to throw that out there.
I mean, it's like the easiest position to find guys.
And he knows the system.
I don't get it. I just don't get it.
So what you're saying is they should go get Sean Drone.
Yeah.
Remember that?
DeJuan Harris, what's up? Do you want to play football? We'd love to have you. Marshawn Lynch, are you in the Bay? Do you want to suit it up? Who's around? Roger Craig? You're not that old. Come on. Barry Sanders? What's up? No, seriously, it's the easiest position to fill. We can agree on that, right? And the fact that Jordan Howard was just waiting around and signed a practice squad deal when he was a Pro Bowler like 4 years ago and is still only 26 shows you what the market is like at that particular position. It's a buyer's market. And the fact that the Niners are like, well, we'll just go with what we got this week and see if it works. Like, okay, all right. Well, should I pick you to win? Should I pick you to win? All right, because I guess I shouldn't. I guess I shouldn't. They're gonna have Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman this week, so maybe it's not an issue. But the two games they lost this year because Jerick McKinnon was the only running back they had makes me go like this.
I saw Spencer Ware's name. Isaiah Crowell.
He played for Shanahan in the past.
Jeremy Hill.
LSU. Second round pick.
Javarius Allen wasn't too bad with the Ravens.
Buck Allen from USC. Was he like 25?
Yeah.
All these guys. Anyway. Also, Jerick McKinnon shouldn't be in the NFL anymore. He should not. He should be done. So there's that. The fact that they keep playing Jerick McKinnon is the human tank. They should call him Tank McKinnon, not Jet McKinnon. That dude is Tank McKinnon from now on. Swear to God. No. That's his new nickname. Every time he plays, I'm saying Tank. He is the Tank. No, it was Barge. It was Tugboat. Now it's Tank. All right, Tank McKinnon. What grade would you give Kyle Shanahan this year? Guys had a lot to deal with. A lot of bad luck. What grade would you give his performance at the bye? A midterm grade, knowing it's not the final grade. It's more trying to send a message to him and his parents.
Go ahead, Matt.
A minus?
I was going to go, so this is a little controversial, I guess, but I'm going B minus because I think he's had some really good performances in good games. So like a couple tests he aced, but then a couple tests he got D's and low C F's that brought it down. But it's still a decent average where like you're happy with the season, but you had expectations it was an easy A in the class or at least a B plus, and so you're still disappointed. And some things bought into that, obviously, not having, in my opinion, the two best offensive weapons on the team. I think a lot of people agree with that. Mostert and Samuel for the majority of the season hurt. But I go B.
Not having Kittle hurts too.
Yeah, not having Kittle, not having your best
also
blocker
the quarterback.
too. Yeah, well, and that goes without saying. The quarterback situation's been interesting, but I think he's had some good highs. The Rams game, the Patriots game, I think he was on fire in those, and so I go B minus.
I'm gonna go with a. At first, when I read this question from you, I was like, okay, that's an A. Like it's Shanahan. But then the more I thought about it, I would say a solid B. Just a solid B. 85 rating. And where I like deducted to where I went from an A to a B basically is like, why was Trent Taylor playing over Richie James to begin the season?
Good call.
Was Dante Pettis playing over Richie James to begin the season? Who knows? Maybe if you throw to Richie James on fourth down instead of Trent Taylor, he's able to somehow, maybe Jimmy gets him a better throw because it's not Trent Taylor waiting forever to go like this out of the break. So it's just like things like that. It's why was Brunskill at center all of camp and then kick him to right guard week one? It's just situations like that to where it's like, okay, the team could have been better in that. As far as like taking out Mullins against the Eagles, I would have left him in there. But as far as, I don't think you could go any lower than a B minus because of all of the injuries. You're kind of just go ahead.
I think you can go lower than B minus. Let me say I'm going to give him a C, and I fully see all of his excuses. It's the truth. I mean, you don't have your quarterback, your tight end, your running back, your wide receiver. That's a big deal. So he's graded on a curve, no question about it. You don't just look at where his offense ranks and be like, well, that's you, D. No. What a coach's you win with talent in the NFL. A coach's job is to maximize the talent, and he doesn't have much talent to maximize. But compare him to his defensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator's had a lot of issues too. I mean, they've lost 8 of 11 starters in the defense, 8. And Saleh has maximized his talent. That is a defense that ranks top 5 despite the issues. So Saleh on this scale to me is an A+, even though he doesn't have the best defense in the league or even the second best defense in the league. A+ for Saleh. Shanahan, I haven't seen him consistently maximize what he has. He's had excuses. It's tough, but to me, the offensive line is worse than the sum of its parts. I mean, what's going on there? That's an issue. He doesn't consistently play the best players. He's losing games because of special teams, because of muffed punts on special teams. When you have 2 guys who, at least one, who was a stud returner in college, I'm talking Ayuk, and hasn't sniffed it because of injury concerns. So, I mean, he's had good games. He's just been inconsistent. And for someone I consider a top 5 play caller in the league, I feel like it's been a little bit beneath him this year. Next year, when he has his players back, I fully expect Shanahan at his best. I just feel like he's better than what he's done this year, even given all of the excuses he has. I would expect him to do what Saleh's doing. Really, I would.
So when you made the face after I said you can't really say anything lower than,
I was like, well, watch me.
The case I was gonna make is because he has put his team, other than what I've said, the terrible 4th and 1 stuff, other than all of that, he has put this team in places to win. Like, he called a great play to Kendrick Bourne, wide open in the end zone against Arizona. Jimmy Garoppolo does not get the ball.
True. That's a good point.
Garoppolo's late to Trent Taylor on the 4th down. Nick Mullins decides to throw right at an Eagles linebacker for an easy pick 6. That guy will never have an easier interception in his NFL career. So I look at scenarios like that. It's like, okay, well, he has them in a position to win as far as play call goes, but his players did not execute. So that it's just hard for me to put blame on Shanahan when you have Jimmy Garoppolo 10 yards short of a pass.
Agree. But it's also the coach's job to find something that his players can execute. And for whatever reason, Saleh has been able to find things that his band of misfits have been able to execute. He's done it. And maybe it's tougher for Shanahan. Maybe it is. But he hasn't been able to do it consistently. He has done it a few times. Those games against the Rams and the Patriots were 2 of his best games ever. He should be really proud of that stuff. But that's 2 out of 10 games. I have higher standards for Shanahan. I think he's better than that. So I would put him at C. Maybe if it were a different coach, I'd be like, you know what, B-, B+. For Shanahan, I think he can do better, especially when his D coordinator is kind of showing him up just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. So that's all I'm saying. It's because I love Shanahan. It's because I like him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We answered that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. How big of a need is edge rusher for the 49ers this offseason? We've talked about edge rusher earlier today. How big of a need is it? Nick Bosa's coming back theoretically. So is Ron. Well, Nick Bosa.
Got to be the number one thing on your to-do list this offseason as far as signing free agents. It's got to be your number one thing there for the free agent pool. That's when the 49ers are at their best. Yeah, they'll get Nick Bosa this season or next season, but they're still without DeForest Buckner, and they'll probably be without D Ford. You would hope that Kinlaw replaces the presence of Buckner, although I don't think year 2 Kinlaw replaces year 4 Buckner production. And then that means you're going to need someone instead of D Ford, because there's no way you keep this team when you could free up $16 million from D Ford. It's got to be the number one thing there. Like I've said earlier, Melvin Ingram from the Chargers is going to be a free agent this season. There's going to be other players that are free agents, maybe even a trade. It's got to be the number one thing on the free agent pool, because that's what's going to help out this team that's losing less players in the secondary.
That's a good point this guy made. But yeah, you're right. No, good points, Leo.
I think they need to do a couple things with the edge rushers. I think they need to sign someone, not necessarily. I mean, Melvin Ingram would be great if they could afford him, but I think a similar situation to Kerry Hyder. Kerry Hyder might be too expensive to bring back next year, but someone like that, where it's a capable backup. I think we all read in the offseason what he did with Kosarek the first time he was with them. So someone similar to that might take on that Ronald Blair role that Hyder kind of assumed this year. So I think they definitely need to sign a veteran backup that's controllable, but I think they do need to draft someone. I'm not necessarily saying the first round, but they need to draft the best player available every round, regardless of position. And if there's an edge rusher that can improve this team in the top 4 or 5 rounds, they got to do that, because they need to infuse more youth into this defensive line to maybe by year 2 for this guy that could partner with Bosa and take over Armstead's contract when they eventually have to get out of that.
Yeah, it's a big need. It's absolutely a big need, and it's a tough one to fill, because this is one of those positions that's the free agents are expensive if they're any good. If the college prospects are any good, they're going round 1. It's not like running back where you can find these guys. I mean, if they're good, they're expensive. You got to get them. So what do the Niners do? They don't have a bunch of picks up high in the draft. They don't have a lot of cap space. To me, that's why they're kicking the tires on Takkarist McKinley, because he's a former first-round pick with that type of athleticism that might be cheap and available because of all these things that are wrong with him. You know, that's what the Niners are at. Like, they're kind of shopping at Nordstrom Rack. You know, they're looking for the things with the little blemishes and stuff like that, which is fine. I mean, that's why I'm suggesting Vic Beasley. I mean, he's kind of in the same. He would be on the sale rack at Nordstrom, and he would have a little stain on the collar, but you'd be like, maybe if I just fold the collar in a little bit or wear it under a jacket, it'd look good. So yeah, it's a big need. I don't see how they can. I don't mean drafting an edge rusher in round 5, maybe. You know, you can get a guy like Chase Winovich in round 5, maybe. Maybe that's the way to if you're lucky. It's a tough one. So yeah, maybe better to do that than bring in a guy like Vic Beasley, who I don't know.
They could probably sign East Bay Chris.
That guy is talk about a triple threat. He's a quadruple threat, a quintuple threat.
Yeah, but another free agent I look out there is I just searched up is like Ryan Kerrigan, a little older guy. How much is he going to cost? He's still a solid player, but seems like they have dispute in Washington. I have no idea why that he didn't get traded somewhere.
Well, maybe if the Niners get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, get rid of Dee Ford, they can actually make a surprise signing of an impact edge rusher. I think they're going to have to spend most of their cap space bringing back Trent Williams and Fred Warner, but I don't know. I'm not a capologist. Are there capologists? Can people put that on their W-2? I'm a capologist. I study the cap.
Why not? Why not?
Okay, final question, and then I'm going to let everyone go. Is how big of a need is cornerback? I mean, the Niners have a top 5 defense. Jason Verrett's playing really well, and Mosley's no slouch. So how big of a need is cornerback?
I think it once again goes back to defensive line, how much they bring in there. If they do get a Melvin Ingram type or a top guy in the draft, that would help the defensive backs a lot. But if they're unable to go that route, they go quarterback or offensive line in the first couple rounds, then I think they do need to re-sign Mosley and Verrett or one of the two and bring in another guy that's capable of starting. That they do need help at cornerback, in my opinion. But if they get a top-notch edge rusher, regardless of age, I think that does push defensive back down on the needs list.
Good point. The best way to cover DK Metcalf is to sack Russell Wilson. Is that what you're saying?
Well, but until last night, Patrick Peterson had given up 28 receiving yards in 3 games against DK Metcalf. So, but then he got destroyed last night when the Cardinals had no pass rush.
I feel like DK Metcalf ended Patrick Peterson's career last night, kind of like how I ended Mike McGlinchey's career yesterday afternoon. Kind of like it was sort of similar. It was that type of, you know what I'm saying? He pulled a Grant Cohn, is what I'm saying DK Metcalf did. Leo.
Jeez.
You like how I can toot my own horn with a smile, right? And I can really give myself some serious praise.
You have to.
That's true.
Patrick Peterson, breaking news. He's been bad for at least 3 years now.
That's true. That is true.
Dante Pettit scored a touchdown on him, and he had like 10 yards of separation last season.
That is true.
Okay, so getting back on topic, I think the question should be, how important is it to bring back Jason Verrett? Because I think that's more of the question here. It's you're going to tender Mosley. It's going to cost you $3 million. That's nothing for him compared to the open market. And then you re-sign Jason Verrett. Cool, you have your 2 outside guys. I like Cornell Motley as like a prospect who's on the practice squad team out of Oklahoma, who was an undrafted free agent. And then you could probably take a guy in maybe the 2nd round, 4th round. That'll help things out. And what the 49ers also, you could re-sign the best nickel corner in the NFL in Jamar Taylor.
I don't think Grant was.
Do you know what his quarterback rating allowed is this season? Jamar Taylor? Do you know? 69. So
nice.
Make fun of Jamar Taylor at your own peril.
I'm not making fun of him. I'm saying that they should re-sign him.
You've never believed in Jamar Taylor. I'm the one on this show. Like, give him a chance, Leo, please.
That's why last time I had to text him like, hey, like, bro, that wasn't me. That was Grant talking. Like,
hey, tell him I'm sorry. He's right. I was wrong. Yeah, He's smart. I'm dumb. He's good looking. I'm not attractive. Tell him that.
Okay. But I think it's re-signing Jason Verrett is what's going to keep the secondary okay. And like Mav touched on, you add another guy that can actually suit up on Sunday. It's not named D4 to play on the edge. You're getting to the quarterback quicker, and he's not building a whole house back there for his family. I think they'll be fine at cornerback.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to go and sort of disagree with you there. So, look, I like Jason Verrett. I think Jason Verrett's terrific, and they should re-sign him. Mm-hmm. I also really like Emmanuel Mosley. I think he's terrific. Not terrific. I think he's good, and they should re-sign him. I think they should move him to nickel. I like him. I think he's one of your 11 best players. He should be the nickel next year if they don't bring back K1. I don't think they should. I think corner is basically a young man's position. Nothing against K1. The way I think they do have a big need at corner. I still think it's their biggest need on the team other than quarterback, bigger than edge rusher, bigger than offensive line, because of the division they play in. Most of the time, Verrett and Mosley are good enough. But in this division, the Niners always will have to play one quarter of their games every year against DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf. And not only are they elite, but they're big. They play big. And Emmanuel Mosley does a good job. Like, we've seen him cover both Metcalf and Hopkins. And each time you wouldn't say that Mosley's not there. He's right there. He just gets punked at the catch point because he's 5'11", 185, and the other guys are like 6'3", 220 or whatever. So I just don't think they have to get not just a corner, but a big corner that matches up with these two wide receivers, just the way that the Cardinals went out of their way to draft a guy who matches up with George Kittle. When you are in a division with special talents like them, you have to have special talents to match up, just the way like in the 80s, the Raiders always were building their defense with John Elway in mind, because that was the special talent in their division they had to account for. The Niners, there's two of them. It's not just one guy that they face 2 times a year. It's 2 guys they face 4 times a year. They need a corner who's like 6'1" and good, not like 6'3" and a Kello. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like one of the, and there's a bunch. If you look at the CBS site, you got Joe Horn's son, you got Asante Samuel's son, you got a lot of kids' sons coming out this year, and they look good. So one of those kids.
So if I'm taking someone to guard DK Metcalf or DeAndre Hopkins, someone I look at is Trey Dean from Florida. He's probably going to be like a 4th-round prospect. The dude is 6'3", 201 pounds, and he may be able to get into the 4.4s, facing SEC receivers right now. So they got good receivers on LSU last year. They had receivers on Alabama last year and this year. So he's facing good talent in college. And so if we're going based on size, that's someone I would look at. Just because 6'1", like, yeah, that's great. I'm 6'1" myself, but is DK is going to still do DK things at his size over someone that's 6'1"?
Humble brag right there, going 6'1".
Well,
I'm 6'1" too.
What my driver license says, but I'm quite there.
See, to me, if you want to get someone who can match up with DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf, who are 2 of the best in the league, you need someone with first-round talent. And you can get good corners in round 4. It's just really hard. It's really hard and rare. So I would say, to me, this is why I don't think the Niners can trade up for a quarterback this year. I think they need to take a corner as well. And they got to figure out who the best corner is going to be available for them at the beginning of round 2, or if they can trade Jimmy Garoppolo for a first-round pick. If someone wants that contract, maybe they can do something there with it. I think they need to take a serious corner this year, or else they're just going to continue to get burned by Metcalf and Hopkins and lose to those teams. If you don't have an answer for those wide receivers, I don't see how you can feel confident going into that matchup.
Yeah, it's just,
I just don't.
How I look at it is over the past, 5 years, how many first-round corners actually turned out to be first-round talent and not turn out to be like Eli Apples of the first round? And it seems like there tends to be more consistent starters in round 2, round 3 of the spectrum at that position.
Well, we'd have to do it. I don't know about that. We would have to do a deep dive on the success rates at cornerback by round. Maybe we'll do that next time. But I feel like we're running a little out of time today. Guys, thanks for watching. Hour and 12 minutes. We got some great fans. Leo, you were terrific today. Maverick, you were splendiferous today. I was decent, I think, I hope. And now it's Friday. Now we're done. So let's go. Let's go have a nice time. Let's go have a good time until 10 o'clock, and then I'll go home. Okay? Or are we allowed to stay out till 10:30 tonight? What's the rule?
Yeah, that's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, let's go party like it's 1999.
In San Diego, everything already closed at 10 o'clock.
That
so
sucks.
It made no difference for me.
Keep in mind, the Niners cannot lose this weekend. It's impossible. So you got that to look forward to. No losses. All right, guys.
All right.
Take care.